All right. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Molly Heffernan, Director of Marketing for the Tory Burch Foundation, and welcome to our small business webinar series. Today's session is about one of my absolute favorite topics: expand your brand on social media. We have Kia Young, digital communications strategist and social media expert, here with us today. Kia helps entrepreneurs like all of you design custom social media strategies. Her focus: what matters most. She specializes in how businesses can work smarter, focus on content that matters, and avoid being another brand lost in a sea of content. Kia guides her clients to build relationships and create communities that really convert. So be sure, get your questions ready and put them in the Q&A box today. We're going to do our very best to get to as many of your questions as possible. And if you miss anything, we are recording today's session and you can watch on YouTube later this evening. So with that, Kia, over to you.
Thank you so much, Holly. I am so incredibly honored for being here today. I'm such a fan of the Tory Burch Foundation, really because we have aligned missions. Of course, Tory Burch's mission is to empower women, and mine is to help women find the validation, the ease, and the freedom that they deserve through their businesses. So we're going to do a lot today. I'm going to share my screen so you guys can all see what I'm seeing. Okay, we're going to go through a lot today, but I want you first to really relax and center the fact that what we're going to be doing today is going to empower you, and it will be a stepping stone to getting more ease into your business, more freedom into your business. And you'll be able to leave here and speak directly to your target audience, to your ideal clients. And it's going to allow you to grow your community, to expand your brand, of course, and increase your revenue. So again, it's my honor to be here and to be able to pour into all of you, particularly around a subject that so many entrepreneurs and solopreneurs struggle with, and that's social media. So I have a question for you. I start almost every training I do with this question. So if you've ever been in a training with me before, you might have seen it before. I still want you to answer in the chat for me, okay? That question is this: do you feel like social media for you and your brand is a pedestal, or do you feel like it's a roadblock? Now, type your answers in the chat, and I'm not going to judge you. There isn't a wrong answer. Okay, I'm going to look over to the chat to see. Oh, I don't think that I can see the chat. There it is. See some answers that we have. Seeing pedestals. I'm seeing a lot of pedestals. I'm seeing some roadblocks. That's okay. I'm seeing that it can be both. Really good, really good. Okay, so here's the thing. Some entrepreneurs, as you can see, consider social media like a secret weapon that puts all their expertise on a pedestal for others to see, while others consider it a giant roadblock that's kind of standing in the way of their ideal clients and their customers. So the good news is that for those of you that see it as a roadblock, there are a few key shifts that we're going to make today so that it can become a pedestal for you, okay? So you see, this is what I need you to understand. Once you begin to intimately understand the purpose behind social media and the social media platforms, what makes those platforms tick, where the ideal clients, your ideal clients actually are, and then the content, the type of content that those clients need, the content that they want, that they respond to, that's when you're able to approach social media in a totally different way, where it actually feels like psychology versus trying to crack this algorithm code, okay? So having that background knowledge makes for a perfect trifecta, right? It becomes an intersection for you, an intersection between connection, community, and conversions. So today, I'm going to take you on a journey. We are going to learn the purpose behind the top social media platforms. We're going to make the algorithm our BFF. And we're going to go over 3 things that are missing from your social media strategy that's actually blocking your growth. Okay. My promise to you is that you're going to walk away with clarity around what platform you should invest your time, a new understanding of the algorithm that will allow you to make informed decisions on what type of content to create, and an action plan to optimize your social media profiles, and kind of get the foundation of your social media strategy started today. Okay. Now, before we dive in, I want to give you a little bit of background on me. Now, communication and connection is so important to me. So I want to start with like who I am, not necessarily what I do. So I'm a mom to 3, 18, 14, and 8. And the sweetest black golden doodle you will ever meet named Loki James. And I'm hoping he does not start barking while we're together today. In my free time, I like to unplug by hiking, kayaking, anything in nature I love. And I also love stuffing my face with tacos. And so I want to hear if we have anything in common. Put it in the chat if we have anything in common personally, while I'll share with you that I understand at this point, a lot of you have probably heard a lot of social media tips, a lot of social media hacks, strategies that probably didn't pan out for you or that kind of left you frustrated. So I started my business as a social media manager in 2017. That quickly grew to an agency named The Social Crown, where me and my team created content for dozens of entrepreneurs with service-based businesses, personal brands, and even some product-based businesses. Now, today, I focus on developing marketing plans that include aligning social media strategy and email marketing and content marketing and making sure that my clients show up as the leader in the space that they are while growing the right community that leads to conversions and then teaching them how to implement it. So I shared all of that with you today so that you know that everything that I'm sharing with you today comes from years of testing, of implementing, and of executing the same strategies that I'm sharing with you today daily, and then teaching other people how to do the same. So let's get into it. We're going to start with the purpose behind each platform. So what I need you to know here is that every single platform has a reason for existing, and they're all different. So for example, Facebook, let's start there. Facebook's entire purpose is to drive conversations. It wants to see that back and forth dialogue happening between you and someone else on the platform. That's why if you've ever noticed when you post anything on Facebook and someone comments, the quicker you reply to that comment, the more engagement that you tend to get because the algorithm has picked up that a conversation is happening. So just keep tucked in the back of your mind that responding quickly on Facebook and replying to the people who are interacting with you is actually what's driving how many people actually see your posts. So I'm sure you've heard don't post and ghost. This is the reason why, okay? It wants to see that back and forth dialogue. Now, the purpose behind Instagram is to inspire. People on Instagram mostly want to mostly feel positive or passionate about whatever it is they're seeing. They want to feel uplifted. That's why when people take even more action than commenting, so when they comment, when they save your content, when they share your content via DMs to their stories, when they swipe through the carousels, all of those things, it gets you increased reach because the Instagram algorithm is rewarding you for having great content. The purpose behind LinkedIn is to receive and give value and connect with other professionals and entrepreneurs. Okay, that's the whole purpose of that platform. Twitter's purpose is to insert yourself into trending conversations or to start a trending conversation yourself. Pinterest, where Instagram is to inspire, Pinterest is where people go when they're feeling aspirational. It's to what they want to aspire to. So if you think about it, that's where all of our dream weddings and dream parties and dream vacations and the crafts that we want to do and the recipes that we want to make, they all live on Pinterest because the purpose of Pinterest is to aspire. YouTube's purpose is to educate or entertain. Think about the reasons why you go to YouTube. It's usually to learn something or to experience something that's entertaining, okay? Now, the new kids on the block are TikTok and Clubhouse. TikTok is most closely aligned with YouTube in the way that the goal is to educate and entertain, most of the time entertain. But it does kind of align with Instagram in that the imagery is very important there and you can use hashtags on TikTok. Clubhouse is most closely aligned to LinkedIn, so networking with other professionals and growing your community, being able to share your expertise. All of those things are happening over on Clubhouse, but Clubhouse is really a lot cooler than LinkedIn, I think, especially right now because it's the newest platform. But it doesn't feel as quite as buttoned up as LinkedIn does, and there isn't as much spam, obviously, that tends to happen on LinkedIn. Now, I'm telling you all of this so you can really understand that people hang out on the platforms where their purpose is most closely aligned to their values. So what are those things that they value? Do they value being inspired? Do they value like that tone of aspiration? Do they value those conversations and being able to connect with people? That's how you decide what platforms you should be on. So now that you know the purpose behind those platforms, it's time to take advantage of that and use that knowledge in two ways. So one, knowing the purpose of the platform allows you to clearly define where your audience is. We just talked about that. And then the next thing is kind of like a question for you. In the chat, I'd love for you I'm going to show you a word in my next slide. I want you in the chat to put the very first thing that comes to mind when you see this word pop up. You ready? I'm going to put it there now. 1, 2, 3. The word is algorithm. So put in the chat the first thing that comes to mind when you see that word. Let me scroll down to see what some of those answers are. Calculation, a hot mess. I saw a headache, mysterious, progress. That's good. Enigma. I'm seeing some really good words come through. So here's the thing, friends. The algorithm is not out to get you, I promise you. It's not here to suppress you. It wants to love you. It actually wants your content to shine. It wants to reward you, but only if you're doing what it needs you to do as a business owner or a content creator on that platform. You see, the algorithm is simply a relationship that's grounded in reciprocity, okay? So you give to it and it will give to you. Now, at the end of the day, on every single platform, the algorithm's job, unfortunately for us, is to keep you on that platform. That's what the algorithm is there to do. Keep you or keep your audience on that platform. It's collecting data on what you interact with what your clients interact with what we like, with what we're prioritizing. It is going to prioritize the things that keep us there, and that's what it's going to show us. Okay, so that's very important for you to understand, that it is collecting data so that it can present us and our clients with the content that's going to interest us enough to keep us on that platform. Okay. So knowing this, my question to you is this: is your content doing its part? Is your content compelling enough to interrupt the mindless scrolling that we do on social media? Is your pictures, are they interesting? Is your first sentence, the very first few words that you use, are they captivating enough to grab our attention? Are we intentionally creating irresistible content? Or are we just putting words up there and hoping that someone is going to read it? So when we post anything, the algorithm actually gets really excited for us, right? Because it's thinking to itself, yes, okay, let's see what's gonna happen. And so it's watching, especially that first hour of you putting up fresh content. It is watching and literally looking to see, is anyone interacting with your content? And every time you get some type of interaction, like comments, saves, shares, swiping through on carousels on Instagram, any interaction that you get, it is watching, it is collecting. And every time you get interaction, it says, okay, I'm going to share it to a few more people. Okay. So those of you that said it's a calculation, you're kind of right, because it is looking every time that we give it what it wants, which is people interacting with us, it rewards us with more people with more people seeing our content. So here's a hard truth. The algorithm is not suppressing your content. It's ensuring that your content is doing what it needs you to do, and that is to compel people to engage and interact. And if your content is not doing that, well, you're not serving its purpose. And so it's not going to show or continue to show your content to other people. So this is my call to action to you, that if the algorithm is frustrating you, if you feel like it's a huge roadblock, I want you to really dig deep and get real with yourself and start working on the quality of your content and not necessarily the quantity of your content. Posting more isn't going to help you. Posting better content is what's going to help you. So you may be asking yourself, how do you do that, Kia? And the answer is a few ways, but the biggest one is strategy. So we don't have enough time to completely get into strategy today, but there are 3 key takeaways, 3 things that I want to make sure that you add to your strategy after we leave each other today, okay? 3 things missing from your social media strategy that is blocking your growth. Those 3 things are having objectives for your content, having an engagement strategy, and being intentional about optimizing your content. So the first thing I mentioned was content objectives. Just like social media platforms have a purpose, our content, everything that we put out into the world should have a purpose, right? I'm a huge proponent of being crystal clear on every single thing that you do. So everything has a goal or objective. I'm talking about life. I'm also talking about social media. Okay, you can take that and run with it. Everything has an objective. Everything has a goal, right? Including the content that we put out. So you may have heard some people do content buckets, some people do content pillars, some people just do what I call the post and pray method, where they put it up there and pray that it works. They just post it and pray that it works. But what I'm going to teach you today, and what I need you to understand, is that our goal here is, again, that mission of empowering each other, empowering women, right? Gaining more ease and more freedom. And so in order to do that, this is still business, right? So we have to move our audience, the people that are following us, we have to move them from casual followers and people that just happen to be following us. So that we have to move them from being the casual audience to being a raving fan, okay? And we can only do that by ensuring that our audience knows, likes, and trusts us and our brand. Okay. So my solution for this, getting, moving people from, follower to fan, is what I call content objectives. And I created this because I wanted an intentional strategy that truly just focused on giving your community a 360-degree view of you and your brand. Okay. We get to show up as our full selves, or as much as ourselves as we're willing to share, because I truly believe some things can still remain private on social media and we can still maintain that authenticity without giving everything away. But for content objectives, I believe that everyone should have about 5 to 6 content objectives. But there are 4 core content objectives that are super important and that everyone, no matter if you're service-based or business-based, should have in their business, in their social media strategy. So the first one is to educate. And we've all heard that we have to give value, right? So under this content objective, we want to ensure that we are investing, or this is how we invest into our audience before they invest in us, right? So this is where your thought leadership really thrives and where it lives. And this is also where your audience builds trust in you, right? Because they're getting information, they are hopefully getting some results from that information that you're giving them, that value that they're giving. This is where you share tips and do's and don'ts and facts and your unique approach and methodology to social or to your industry. So that's educate. The next common content objective is to engage. Now, the engage content objective is actually my favorite because it is the only reason it exists is to drive the algorithm. Because remember, that's a relationship that we have to continue to feed, right? So usually when I say engage, people are like, okay, I'll ask my audience questions, right? And they go and they ask these deeply philosophical questions that no one answers because it's way too deep. You have to remember, this is all psychology. And people come to social media to scroll, to take their mind off of things, not to be overwhelmed with like needing to be super vulnerable or something that's going to throw us into an existential crisis. Like it can be fun and light, especially under this objective, because the goal is just for the algorithm to see that we create content that people interact with, right? And so under this content objective, when you're creating this type of content, you want it to be super surface level, still related to your business, but something that anyone can answer, irresistible. So this is where you give polls, yes or no. You drink tea or coffee? I'm a tea girl. Do you, what book are you reading right now? Those type of questions that people just love to talk about, they can't scroll by without answering, right? And of course, we love talking about ourselves. So anything that is related to your business where people can talk about themselves will usually be gold under this content objective, okay? Next content objective is to highlight. Under the highlight content objective, this is anything to do with your brand. This is where you're showing off behind the scenes, where you're showing off if you have team members, bragging about the features and benefits, your client testimonials, ways to work with you, sharing your core values and purpose. That is super important. All of those things live under the highlight objective, and it builds the trust and know factor within your audience. And then that fourth content objective of the 4 common content objectives is to convert. Now, people hear the word convert and you probably are thinking a sale, and that is not what a conversion is. I need you to understand, especially on social media, that conversion is taking someone from one platform and simply getting them to another place outside of that platform. So it is driving them from Instagram to your website. That's the conversion, right? The conversion isn't the sale, because wherever you're driving them, it's that place's job to sell them. So if you're sending someone to your website from Instagram, it's your website's job to actually make the sale, to make sure that your copy is good enough, to make sure whatever you're telling them is enough to compel them to work with you. Social media's job is to get them there. It's a funnel, okay? That's what conversion is. Conversion is the hardest action for a follower to actually do, because it takes them liking you, knowing you, and trusting you already. Because remember, they didn't come to social media or to Instagram or to Facebook or anywhere for you to send them somewhere else, right? So they have to be really, feel connected to you in order to be compelled to convert, okay? The conversion objective is the only one that builds or that takes all three of the like, know, and trust before your audience will actually do it. Now, outside of those 4 content objectives, the last 1 to 2, right, are completely individual, completely unique to who you are, to what your audience needs. And so in order to kind of find what those objectives are, I tend to tell you to ask yourself 2 questions. What else do I want my content to do for my audience? Or what do I want my audience to do as a result of my content? So an example of a unique one for me, outside of educate, outside of educate, engage, highlight, and convert, my last objective is to humanize myself, to make sure that I connect with them on a very personal human level. So that's where I talk about like my life, my self-care habits, like the things that are important to me, what matters most to me. That's that content objective for me. Yours might be something completely different. Ask yourself these 2 questions. What else do I want my content to do for my audience? What do I want my audience to do as a result of my content? Okay, so that's the one thing that is blocking you from growing. Your content has no objectives, right? So we're going to fix that. The second thing that's blocking you is you don't have an engagement strategy. And so what I need you to know for this one is what you give is what you get. You should be engaging, first of all, on the platforms where your target audience actually hang out daily. And then that engagement strategy, what it actually is, will look different based on how much time you actually have. But the key components of your engagement strategy is one top key component, I need to stress that, is to engage with people just as your content is going live. So if you're using a scheduler of some type and you schedule your post to go live at 8, you want to be engaging with other people around that same time. I'll tell you why in just a second. So first, ask yourself, how much time do you have to spend on engagement every day? Is it 5 minutes? Is it 15 minutes? Is it 30 minutes? And the thing is, there is no wrong answer as long as you've outlined it and you know, because you can maximize that time if you have identified what it is. The only thing that can get you in trouble is if you aren't true to yourself or true with yourself and you say that you're going to do something and you don't end up doing it. So if you say that you're going to engage for 30 minutes a day, but you never actually take those 30 minutes, well, that's not helpful. That's not having an actual strategy, right? So engagement practices that actually work. So I just talked about engaging with other people as you go live. Now, if you are on Instagram or LinkedIn, where hashtags are really helpful when it comes to finding your ideal clients, what you want to do is engage under hashtags where your ideal clients actually hang out and the hashtags that they actually use. Particularly on Instagram, when you look up a hashtag, you're going to get 2 sets of results, right? If you've done that before, if you searched for a hashtag before, you saw the results that were the top posts and you saw results that were most recent. So I like to engage with what's most recent instead of what's the top post. And let me tell you why. Because chances are those people are still online. Whenever you search a hashtag, I mean, you're getting results sometimes within seconds of them posting, right? And so if you go and engage with someone who's just posted content One, you're helping them get really good engagement, right? Because you're giving them that immediate feedback that the algorithm is looking for. But two, once you comment or interact with their content, chances are they're gonna, one, at least go and look and see who you are, and two, probably return that favor, right? So now you have dialogue going, you have opportunity for connection. They're at least checking you out to see who you are, right? And so that's why I like using the most recent as well. While you're doing your engagement, so you're going out, you're finding people to engage with that are in your target audience. Let's say you have 30 minutes. A good way to break that 30 minutes up is to take 10 minutes to engage with your existing community. So the people that you follow and that follow you. Then engage with people's stories, okay? Stories is a really great way for engagement because the answers end up in your DM and that feels more intimate, and it's an easier way to build what feels like a more intimate, true connection, right? And then that third piece is interacting with hashtags, okay? So that's a great way to break up any amount of time that you have into those three segments: community, stories, hashtags. Another thing that you want to do is leverage groups. So this one is really great for those of you where your ideal client is on Facebook. Leverage those groups, especially, I'm going to say this, membership groups, and let me tell you why. I really love membership groups because the people that are in the membership groups have already proven that they'll invest in their business. So for those of you, especially that are service-based, you're in a different type of environment because you know these people are willing to invest in their businesses. That's not to say that people in a free group aren't willing to invest in their business. You just don't know that to be true. Some of us that are newer in our business haven't started making enough income to invest in our business. And so I'm sure you remember when you first started your business, you're just trying to soak up as much free content as possible. And that is not a bad thing. That's how all of us start. But it's easier to find people who are ready to invest in their business and maybe work with you inside a membership because they're already paying for something. All right. Okay. So that's just a little tip for me. Now, the third thing that's blocking your growth is not having intentional optimization. And so what I mean by that is that there are a lot of analytics that we never even look at, right? Every time that I ask a client or someone that I talk to, you know, when's the last time you looked at your metrics? I usually get like a blank face, but people tell you what our clients, our audience, tell us exactly what they want from us through our metrics. So the first thing we want to do is optimize our profile. Your profile has to clearly, in very simple terms, share who you are, who you serve, and what you have to offer. So when you go and look at your Instagram bio right now, if you're on Instagram or your LinkedIn bio or Facebook or wherever you may be, can people easily identify those three things: who you are, what you do, and what you have to offer? Think about that. I'm going to show you really quickly. Your bio is such prime real estate. Really quickly, I'm going to go through this. Your name field, that's the one where you see Kia Young Digital Marketing. That is a searchable field, right? So you don't want it to be the exact same thing that's in your handle. If your handle isn't your name, you want to put your name there, because when people put your name, you'll come up in the search. And depending on what you do for a living, think about how people search for that. Because right now, if someone went and put in digital marketing, my name will pop up because I have digital marketing in my name field. Okay, so make sure that you utilize wherever searchable, you want to optimize those fields. And that name field on your Instagram bio is, you know, searchable. So essentially your profile is a mini resume. If it's unclear on who you are, what you do, what you have to offer, then when people visit your profile for the first time, they aren't in a position where they can self-identify if they belong in your community or not. So they could return or they can abandon your profile and they could be your ideal client, but you aren't clear in your bio of what you actually do, who you actually serve, and what you have to offer them. So you can see right up front, I have marketing strategy for service providers, thought leaders, and nonprofits. That's what I do, right? And so people really quickly can say, oh, okay, this is someone that I could potentially work with, right? And then your highlights, I like to say, are a mini little about page. So anything that you can't fit in your bio, because you only get 150 characters there, you can expand on those things in your highlights, okay? And if you have the opportunity to really add something about yourself so that they can kind of connect with you, do that. But that is like a nice to have, right? Because you want to first make sure that it's clear who you are, what you have to offer, and who you serve. The other thing I need you to know are that hashtags are actually just invitations. So if you're not using 30 hashtags in Instagram, you're basically leaving people on like outside of your community. These are invitations for people to come find us. And so you can see on this particular post, 1,443 people that I didn't know found me just because I used hashtags. Okay, so using the right hashtags are important. Can't get into that today, but just know that if you're not using them or if you're not using all 30 of them, then you're just leaving space on the table. Okay. And then don't ignore the metrics that matter. Way more than likes and comments matter when it comes to your metrics. The things that you can be looking at are people saving your content? Are people going to your website? You know, are they converting to whatever link you have? Success leaves clues. It'll tell you even down to the type of images they like. If they prefer carousels over videos or single images, all of those things happen in the metrics. So if you're not looking at them, you aren't able to optimize what you're doing based on what the metrics are telling you. So if you find that carousels perform super well for you, you are able to do more of them, okay? And there's so much more than just likes and comments. There are people saving that content? Are they sharing it via DM and into their stories? Are they swiping through? There's so much more to metrics than likes in the comments, so don't stop there. Metrics tell you what type of content your audience prefers, the CTAs, how your hashtags are performing, and what your audience found valuable enough to share. So again, do not skip the metrics that matter. Now, at the beginning of today, I promised you that I would ensure that you understood the purpose behind each social media platform, how to make the algorithm your BFF, and 3 things missing from your social media strategy that's blocking your growth. We went through all of that, and I think I delivered on that promise, and that you have newfound clarity around the platforms that you should invest your time. I promised you that you'd have a new understanding of the algorithm. I hope that I delivered on that. And that you'd have an action plan to optimize your social media profiles. So we did that. We're going to go and make sure that our bios clearly show who we are, who we serve, and what we have to offer, right? Now, I know that I shared a ton of information with you today, and so I want to invite you to connect with me. I have free resources. I give weekly value-rich emails over on my website at kiayoung.com, and feel free to stay connected over at Kia Knows Social. Last thing, really quickly, I wanted to share with you, Molly, is the opportunity to continue to work with me. If you are interested, I have a very special 1-month trial for anyone connected to the Tory Burch Foundation. Inside my membership, Social Media That Sells, we have accountability and mentorship each week We meet twice a week for content co-working sessions where I'm there to give you feedback. We have a private Slack channel, access to a social media course that I created, and we have a monthly masterclass inside of that. Tory Burch Foundation members will get a 1-month trial for only $49. You can see the link there. I'll post it in the chat as well, if that's okay, Molly. And I think it's time for Q&A.
Yes, thank you so much, Kia. And I have to say, we have over 700 people on right now and a ton of questions to go through.
Okay.
So first, and a really common one was you talked a lot about knowing which channel does what. What are people on these platforms to do? And a resounding question from the group is, well, how do I figure out which platform my customers are on?
Yeah, so there's some really questions that you have to ask yourself. So remember, it's about knowing your ideal client enough that you can identify which of those purposes they are most closely connected to. So if your audience is all about conversations and driving conversations and they have a lot of questions for you and they're active in Facebook groups, well, you need to be on Facebook. You know, if they are really about inspiration and getting just really quick value, then probably Instagram. If they are more suited to the executive world or have careers or have jobs, then you definitely want to be on LinkedIn. So it's really about knowing, you have to know your audience well enough to be able to say, okay, this is where they are, and you go on those places, into those places.
Great. And a lot of people on today's call are solo entrepreneurs, small business owners, wearing a ton of hats. And so Michelle asked, you know, I'm extremely busy. Do I need to be literally writing my own captions and writing the content in order for our brand to be a real thought leader? Or is that something that someone else can do?
It is definitely something that someone else can do. Now, I mean, I told you, I started off as a social media manager. That's literally what I did for a living, is write those captions for other people. And so it's finding the right social media manager, right? One that can capture your voice. But you have to have a lot of understanding of your own brand. You have to make it easy for them to be able to pick up on that information. So have you created content where they can fall back to that doesn't involve you always talking to them? So, you know, are you writing blog posts? Are you doing little videos for them so that they can get that information? Because they can't pull it out of thin air, and you want to sound like yourself. So it's a combination of finding the right social media managers, and there are several out there, and making sure that as a busy business owner, you've done that pre-work of making it easy for them to know exactly what your brand is, what your brand story is, and like what you stand for, so that they can put that out into the world for you.
Great. And then for the folks who maybe aren't ready for a social media manager yet and are trying to, you know, juggle managing clients and the business, how do they carve out time to focus on social? And, you know, is that at the end of the workday? How do you do that?
So there's a couple of different ways, right? I said earlier, don't do the post and pray method. I don't want you to do that. So it's about carving out, you know, an hour and batching content and scheduling. Another thing that's really important that I always stress to solopreneurs is don't feel like you have to be everywhere. Master one platform, the one platform that your target audience is definitely hanging out on. Do that really well. And then once you've mastered that and feel good about it, you can move on to another platform. But the idea that you need to post every day is not true, especially for service-based businesses. So product-based is a little bit different, but service-based businesses, especially if you don't have average engagement. So average engagement is about 3% of the people that are following you. So if you don't have average engagement and you're posting too often, that it actually hurts you, because again, the algorithm is saying, okay, she doesn't have enough, you know, interaction on her content, but she's posting all the time. That's actually signaling to the algorithm even more that we're posting things that people don't necessarily want to interact with. So, you know, I usually say starting out like 3 times a week, especially if you don't have average engagement, it's completely fine. And on one platform, and then you can expand as you get that down.
Right. And before we shift gears into paid, Terry here had a great question. How do I know if I should be hiring a social media manager or working with a digital agency? What's the difference? Should I be writing a job description or scoping out a proposal?
Yeah, so I think it really depends. Personal brands, I think that just from personal experience, a social media manager probably would be a better fit, better scenario because they work on the online space. A lot of times agencies, and I used to be an agency, a lot of times agencies, they are a little more rigid because they are serving quite more people. So there is no wrong answer there. I think the biggest thing to determine is, can that person capture your voice and it appear that it's you online? And if they can, then whatever works, works. So there's no wrong answer there. And there, like, you could do either one. The biggest thing is making sure that they can capture who you are.
Right. And so now to shift gears to paid, because it's a hot topic in the Q&A box. Common question. I'm being offered by Facebook or other platforms to boost.
Yeah.
When is the right time to boost a post? Should I be boosting? What do I do?
Yeah, I love when Facebook sends us those little notifications that 85% of people are boosting posts like this. So the biggest rule for boosting a post is if it does not have great engagement, never boost it, right? So boosting is basically you putting money behind Facebook showing it to more people, right? Doesn't mean that it's getting in front of the right people. It's just like, okay, I'm gonna pay for more people to see it. But if it already doesn't have good engagement, don't forget everything that we learned about the algorithm today. Like, all of those things still hold true. So it's going to show it to more people, but that is not going to get you more engagement. That doesn't mean they're going to interact with it. Success leaves clues. So if it was good enough to get organic engagement, then paid engagement is only going to boost that. But if it's not getting great organic engagement, don't boost it yet. Now, I will give you a little hack that if you have some friends, some biz besties, and there's something that you absolutely feel like you need to boost, share it with them and say, hey, can you guys comment on this? It's not something that I want you to get into the habit of practicing all the time. But if you're an influencer or something like that and you need just a little bit of a boost, ask your friends for some help. But you never want to boost something that doesn't have engagement. That's just throwing money out the window.
I love that tip, Kia. Anytime we launch something here, so even I hear your doodle friend. Anytime we launch something, we build a toolkit, and anyone who is an ambassador for us in big and small ways, we ask to participate. It's so important when you're launching an initiative for your business. You talked about something earlier that I wanted to dig into a little more, and that is when you are talking about conversion, it's bringing someone off the platform and somewhere else. And many times we see really great ads, amazing ads even, that get you to go to a website, and then that site itself is confusing. So that is one of the many blind spots that founders have when doing a paid campaign. What are some of the other big missteps that people should get out in front of before they invest a lot of money in a paid spend?
Yeah, the biggest thing is outside of making sure that the landing page has really great copy, is making sure that you're targeting the right people. So probably the biggest part of paid is really getting the right audience. And so taking the time and really learning to understand how to create and build a targeted audience in Facebook ads is super important. Another thing is trying to sell to them cold. So you have to warm up your people. You can't just go into people who've never seen you before and be like, buy my stuff. So I always say that there's a tiered approach to Facebook ads or any type of ads. And the first one is them just getting to know you and seeing how you interact. And so I like to do what I call a video views, where I'll do a value video, and then do an ad behind that video so more people see me just teaching for free, right? And so they get to know me, they get to know my style, they get to say, oh, that was good and hopefully helpful. Maybe they'll get some results from whatever I'm sharing them. And then I'm collecting those video views on the back end. Facebook is collecting, the ads are collecting it for myself. And then when it's time to sell to them, I can retarget those same people who watched that video ad and they get to see me in a different light. Okay, so I got some value from her and now she's offering me this thing. Okay, I'll spend $37 or whatever if you have a what we call a self-liquidating funnel or a self-liquidating offer, like you have to warm them up first. You can't go straight in for the buy my stuff. Another great way, if you don't want to do a value video, but you do like have a free Facebook group, is to funnel them into your free group so that they can continue to learn more about you, to connect with you. So there's the biggest tip is to make sure that you warm them up before you try to sell to them. That's a huge, huge mistake that I see people make all the time. They just think, oh, I'm just gonna run ads behind it. And it doesn't actually work like that. Remember, it's all psychology for our audience. And so they need to learn from us first before they'll buy from us. They also have to like, know, and trust us on the service side. Product is a little bit different because sometimes we see something and instantly want it, but especially for those that are service-based, definitely want to warm them up before we sell to them.
And a question that came in here in the chat is, how often, is there any magic formula to how often you should run a paid ad campaign?
I wouldn't say that there is a magic formula because it's going to be different for everyone else, every single person. Like, again, going back to metrics, even on the organic side, on the paid side, those metrics are going to tell us so much information. They're going to tell us like details about the people who even interacted with our landing pages or wherever we were sending them. And so it's really important for you to be monitoring those metrics to see like, is what I'm spending average? Because if it's not, then you want to kind of like turn it off and work on that before you continue to run those ads. So it's really looking at what your results are and optimizing based on your specific metrics.
Great. And then moving beyond paid, Karen has asked, what are your thoughts on partnerships or giveaways as strategies to grow engagement on your channel?
Yeah, so if you are going to go that route, make sure that their audience actually makes sense to you. So I see a lot of people doing like those loops giveaways and it's a ton of people and the person can win a lot of money. And you end up getting a ton of followers, but if they aren't your targeted people, guess what's going to happen the moment that the giveaway is over? They're either going to abandon you or they're going to stay in your community and never engage with you. And that's actually worse. It's actually worse for you to have a ton of people who don't engage with you, because remember, the algorithm is looking for average engagement, that 3% of people that are following you, right? That 3 to 4%. So if you have a ton of people following you, that's just making your percentages and your numbers actually like have to be higher than if you had like a smaller targeted audience of people who actually were interested in what you do. So be very careful with giveaways. If it is your target audience and you are collaborating with someone that it makes sense, absolutely go for it. That is a good, I wouldn't call it a strategy, that's a tactic, right? So strategy is kind of evergreen, it never changes. That's a tactic more than a strategy. And it's not a bad one. You just want to make sure that the people you're attracting could actually be targeted potential customers, community members, engaged community members, because not everyone is going to buy our stuff, but an engaged community member is still very valuable, even if they never buy from you.
Mm-hmm. And Victoria here is asking for a little clarification from us. So I think we've talked a lot about advertising, boosting, maybe more specifically in Facebook or Instagram. Are the strategies different on something like LinkedIn, which has a different purpose?
Yes. So LinkedIn ads are really, really tricky. I actually would tell people to never try to run a LinkedIn ad on its own, on your own, without someone who, not just a Facebook ad strategist, but someone who has background in LinkedIn ads, because it's a completely different animal. So are Pinterest ads. LinkedIn, I will tell you, is the one that will just eat your money if you do it wrong. And if you think Facebook ads can eat your money if you do it wrong, LinkedIn can like 10x that, right? So you do not want to play around with LinkedIn ads. Just, you want to work with a strategist if you don't have that background. So not all ads are created equal. There's also Google ads. So there are different strategists, especially around Pinterest ads, LinkedIn ads as well.
And so moving on from ads a little bit, and I know you've talked a lot about the founder voice versus the brand voice. If you're someone who personally is not active, but your brand is, do you need to be starting your own accounts and founder presence on social media? And any advice on getting out of that getting out of your comfort zone to do that?
Funny, I actually went through this last year. So I used to hide behind my agency, The Social Crown, before I came out under my own personal brand. And it really just depends on what your goals are. So what are your goals for being on social? If it's to one day be a speaker, be an author, then you're going to need a personal brand, period. But if that's not your goal, then it's not 100% necessary for you to have a personal brand. So think about those long-term goals of yourself. And if that is something that you want, if you want to be known as an industry leader, if you have a particular thought leadership or methodology or approach to how you do things, then consider a personal brand.
Right. And then for the business, how important is it for a brand to sort of engage with other brands on social media? What are there particular strategies that people should have in mind so that they can hop into the conversation?
Yeah, so if you are showing up as a brand, not a person, engaging with other brands is always good because especially if they are in your target market, or it's a community that is aligned with your community, it makes total sense because they'll see you there engaging and maybe you'll pique their interest. I wouldn't necessarily say if there's someone that you consider like a competitor or something like that, you need to be engaging with that. It just doesn't look good. It doesn't feel like great integrity wise. But I always say start with your target audience, your community first. So I wouldn't put too much stock into someone else's audience, but definitely more focus on building your own.
And so before we wrap up, and I know that there are tons of questions and we're so appreciative of our community for asking, and we will do our very best to answer a lot of these on our foundation website later on. And I'm sure reach out to Kia, she's a wealth of knowledge. But before we go, what are some of the tools or the tactical platforms that you recommend folks use?
Yeah, there are a few. So, and the thing about the platforms, and I'm assuming you're asking like schedulers and things like that. There are so many, and it's really a personal decision. What I like to do is say, definitely use those free trials, right? Because there's things that I like about certain platforms that you're not going to like, and it's so personal. Like everyone that I talk to has a different one that they love. So some that stand out though. Buffer, because you can get to all of the different platforms. Hootsuite is the same. Planoly is a standout if you are big on Instagram because you can actually see your grid. Later is one that a lot of people love as well. But again, there are so many, and it is a very personal decision. So use those free trials, but don't forget to cancel if you don't like them. Otherwise, you'll end up paying all of those subscription fees. Get caught in those all the time.
Well, Kia, it's 2:00 and I could talk to you all day, but thank you so much for joining us. And thank you to everybody who tuned in today. I just have 3 things for you before you sign off. One, we ask that everyone check their inbox later today. We're sending out a survey. We want to know the topics and things that you need to hear next. We shape all of our webinars specifically for our community. 2, mark your calendar. Our next webinar is coming up on April 28th at 1 p.m. We're covering how to be retail ready and manage your supply chain. And then last but not least, visit torybirchfoundation.org. There, I highly encourage you to explore all of our tools. We have lots of marketing resources for the folks on today, and we publish content each week. We're here to help you in every way we can. So again, thank you to all of our entrepreneur community. Thank you to Kia. It's great to see everyone hard at work, and we'll talk to you all soon.